Welcome to the Westrose Media Podcast, Lessons from the Ashes. We are here to tell the Phoenix Rising stories, coming up from the ashes to build businesses, to build personal brands, to parent, coming out, all of it. The stories of those who came from nothing and did great things. We all have a Phoenix Rising story, and I can't wait to hear yours. Join me every week for new podcast episodes. And of course, make sure you follow the show so that you never miss an episode. See you soon. Welcome to the very first episode. I am so excited. And I figured the best way to start is with my story. And many of you have heard this story. Many of you have lived this story with me. And I can't say thank you enough to everyone who has been with me through all of this and watched me grow and cheered me on throughout all of it. It's been such a beautiful journey, and I'm only just beginning. So much more is yet to come. I started this podcast because I wanted to be able to tell these stories, the Phoenix Rising stories. When I started my own first of many Phoenix Risings, the thing that helped me absolutely get through and carry on and not lose my damn mind was listening and reading stories of other people who had been through it before. There was something so raw and beautiful about hearing other people's stories, hearing how they got through the hardest things, hearing how they got through things that I was going through, and that there was hope on the other end. That was my lifeline when I was going through the hardest moments. And I want to be here. I'm throwing you the lifeline. You got this. So let's jump into my story. I grew up in one of those, from the outside, super idyllic little childhoods. I was like playing on a farm and riding my horse bareback and, climbing trees barefoot. It was very much a nature-based childhood, which I know is trendy now, but is just the way we did it then. My parents are amazing people who were such great parents, but we had some stuff that was really, really hard. We had some big moves away from family, and there was some other stuff too. We were deeply, deeply into religion. My parents came both from very strict religious upbringings, and for them, this was the absolute best thing they knew how to do, was take us to church, put us in Christian school, all of these things. I don't blame them in the slightest for this. They were doing their absolute best. But they didn't know that the little kid that they were hauling along to church was a tiny little queer kid inside of a little religious straight girl's body. What was she supposed to do? I sat on my hands in those pews, in those churches, looking up at the person speaking and condemning the person I knew I was inside. And every single word of it made me shut down a little more and a little more and a little more. I had to push it down further and further. Every time I felt something that I wasn't supposed to feel, a panic would come up and I would have to push it down and pretend it wasn't there. And it was hard. And I learned to do it so efficiently. I think we're all little people pleasers at heart. And the way that I had to people please was to fit into what was supposed to be me. I still had a lot of my wild, weird self-expression, and it was nurtured in me in other parts, which I think is what kept my spirit alive long enough that I was able to be myself later in life. So what I mean by that is I knew that I could be my wacky, wild self in other ways, and it kept the little fire inside of me burning so that in my 30s, I could stand up and say, hey, hold on, there's something I got to tell you guys. So backing up, I was a pretty weird and flamboyant kid. I loved musical theater and singing and putting on productions. I would make my sisters do crazy little plays with me, like full costumes and everything, and I'd be running around telling them what to do, and my parents would be sitting there like, oh my God, listening to this shenanigans of me putting on these ridiculous plays and my sisters completely unwilling participants, and me just beaming at the end, being like, did you love it? And then being like, yeah, so good, Stephanie, good, yeah. But it was something inside of me. I've always wanted to be center stage. And weirdly enough, I'm kind of an introvert. But when I'm on stage, it feels different. It feels like I can be myself, like I can stand up and be anybody. I loved theater for that aspect. You could put on a character. A boy could play a girl and a girl could play a boy, and people who didn't actually have a romantic connection in real life could have one on stage. I loved that about theater. I loved being able to get into someone else's skin, really become a character. I did musical theater through high school and absolutely fell in love with it. I had big dreams of being a Broadway star. The only problem is that I absolutely cannot fucking dance. I did try very hard, but I am just not good at it. I used to have a beautiful singing voice, but it's gone a little sideways lately. Maybe someday I'll do a singing podcast for you, a musical theater style singing podcast. But in high school was tricky for me because I went from being in a super strict religious school for all of elementary and junior high, and then going into what we called secular high school. So basically growing up, we were taught that anybody who wasn't in the church was from the secular world, and they were to be feared and converted. So going into an entire school full of these people, it scared the shit out of me. I felt like I was in enemy territory. And that's the kind of, if you've never grown up in a religious situation, you can't really fathom the kind of wording that's used, like things like the enemy and the world and all of this stuff, where they basically pitched everybody who wasn't inside the religion as either the enemy or somebody who had to be turned, and that you had to be careful because they would try to get you. And if you had desires or something that you thought, something you felt inside of you, that if it didn't fit into what the Bible said, then it was from the devil, and the devil was inside you. And all of this stuff that is just from the outside seems so bonkers. It's how I grew up, and it's how I was raised, and it felt like the truth because it was pitched as the truth. And so keeping a part of me hidden and accepting truths that weren't truths for so much of my life really gave me kind of a skewed version of the world. And I know we all have this. Every single kid is raised with whatever their parents feel like is the truth, my kids included. I'm teaching them that love is love and everyone is accepted. And that's the truth that I'm feeding them. And there are people who are teaching their children the opposite, that who I am at the core is a sin and that I'll burn in hell. There are children who know 100% that is the truth because they've been taught it. And this is a really hard concept and very hard to unravel, especially when you're trying to talk to people who've been raised with such hard and fast things that they've been told are truth. To take apart what you've been told is truth and start to look at it and start to think, oh my God, like, is this real? Is this not? What is real? Can I trust myself? Unwrapping all of that, it's going to take me decades. It might take me my whole life. But in high school, I got my first real taste of the secular world. And at first it scared the shit out of me. My very first day at the school, I was wearing this adorable little black skirt. I thought it was so cool. I met my very first friend. His name was Cody. At the orientation, my dad, I was so nervous. My dad saw him and he sat down. He said, "Will you be my daughter's friend?" I was mortified. And he was like, "Okay." And we were literally best friends for the entire first year of high school. People thought we were twins because we only hung out. But there was one moment when I wasn't with him and I was in a stairwell and I literally got pushed up against a wall and a guy shoved his hand up my skirt and I lost my fucking mind. I was like, how did this happen? My first instinct was, I'm bad. I had this short skirt on. What was I thinking? Couldn't tell my parents. Oh my God, can you imagine if they found out that I was such a sinner, that I had been enticing a boy, because that's what I was taught my whole life. If you were wearing something that caused a boy to sin, then you were the problem. So you better fucking change your ways so that that poor boy doesn't have to sin. I was mortified. I was terrified. As I started to make more friends and get into the groove of it and get into theater, then I found some people who I really loved. I met my absolute best friend through all of high school, Whitney, and she also grew up religious. She was Mormon, so we bonded pretty quickly over that. And we were like, okay, so we're both like this, but we also want to try these things that don't fit into how we've been raised. Shall we do it together? And oh, we did. We caused so many shenanigans. One time my mom had to pick us up from the cop station for stealing, get this, lawn gnomes. I know. I'll have to do the entire story in another podcast. But we got into our fair share of shenanigans. And it was in high school that I had my very first girl crush. So I'm not going to say her name, but she was radiant and lovely. And I thought I just wanted to be her friend. I could not explain the things I was feeling. I was terrified. I was like, this can't be real. I just basically puppy dog followed her around until she disappeared out of my life. And it was something that really sparked something in me, but something I was like, I gotta hide this. Like it went in the category for me as the things I shouldn't be doing, like drinking or smoking drugs. I was just like, this can't be something that's okay. It's in the category of things that are fun, but are not allowed. After high school, I decided to go backpacking through Europe. It was an amazing, wonderful experience. So much opened up for me. I got to see other cultures where queerness was accepted and loved. And there was like a little inkling in me that I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. I wish that I lived here. And I think that not so much that I wish I lived there, I wish that I was the person there anywhere. You know, when a place feels like home, I think it's because the way you feel is how you wish you were. You know, that's what I feel like home feels like. And that's how I felt on those trips. After that, I tried a little stint in university. Didn't work out so well. I was dating an absolute disaster of a person at the time. He was incredibly narcissistic and emotionally abusive, and I needed to get away. So I decided to quit my university studies and go live in Ireland as a nanny, which was an amazing experience. I absolutely fell madly in love there with the country, with the children, and with cooking, something I didn't know I was going to ever fall in love with. They had a huge garden there, and I would work, make stuff with the kids. I also lived with a French girl who made the most fucking unreal, like, pastries. She would like whip up the most ridiculous things, the most beautiful things, like in this tiny little kitchen with like the most simple ingredients. And I was just in awe. I was like, teach me everything. We had raised some pigs, and then I got to help with like the butchering, and we made black pudding with it. And like, I just was like transfixed. And I was like, when I get home, I want to go to culinary school. There was also some fabulous dalliances in my university career and in my Ireland trip where I got to have a taste of my queerness. And again, I just thought it's something I can't keep. For me, it always felt like dessert or vacation. Like, yeah, you can have a taste, but you damn well better get back to real life before you get home. So when I say that I didn't know I was queer, I think I always knew, but I wasn't able to say it. I didn't feel safe saying it. I didn't feel safe claiming it. And maybe that's the biggest thing. Not so much that I was afraid of saying it, but I couldn't claim it for myself yet. So I came home and I went to culinary school. And when I tell you that culinary school was transformational, obviously, yes, 2 years of learning all of the things, all of the beautiful things about cooking, about restaurants. I loved it. The adrenaline of being on a super hot line, everything's a bajillion degrees. You're burning, you hurt yourself, you're running on pure adrenaline, you're sweating buckets, and the camaraderie, it was intoxicating. It really is. If you ever wonder why people are line cooks and they work for minimum wage, guaranteed they have a fucking adrenaline addiction. Guaranteed. It's absolutely part of it, and it's so much fucking fun. And I got like so wrapped up in it. I just loved it. And I met somebody when I was there, a guy who was just like my best friend. He was so much fun. He always was really kind. We would party together, and I was still on and off dating the ding dong from my past. Yes, I went back and dated him again after my time in Ireland. Hindsight 2020. Anyways, I finally got the guts to say, I'm out. I'm done with this shit. And that was really, really hard for anybody who has left someone who is incredibly damaging to them. You know that it's not as simple as just being like, this is wrong for me. I need to leave. There is a grip that people have on you when they're narcissistic and abusive that is just so incredibly, it's so strong, and it's hard to even fathom, even looking back. Now I'm like, how did I not just leave? How did I get to the point where we had, all of these horrible things happen? Like, how did I get to the point where I would let him treat me that way day after day? How did this happen? I remember coming in from a run and him looking over at me and being like, oh, I guess those runs aren't really helping. Hey, you still look chubby. Shit like that over and over again. So many terrible things being told over and over again by someone who is supposed to love you. You're not worth marrying. All of that shit. It eats away at you and it damages part of your soul. And it's not as simple as just walking away. So know that if you are in a situation like that, or you're watching someone, it's not as simple as just walking away. You can and you will, but it's not simple. So I finally got the guts to leave that. And the person that stood beside me the whole time was this guy named Jamie. He just was there, steady, steady, steady the whole time, right beside me. And we were best friends. We did everything together. If you've ever watched the movie Seabiscuit, my family said that in the movie Seabiscuit, there's this crazy wild racehorse. And he's like got super amounts of energy, and he's like really flighty and really anxious, as racehorses are. They're powerful machines, but they're a bit crazy in the head. And Seabiscuit was so wild and unruly. Seabiscuit had a companion horse, a draft horse who could not race, was just steady and kept him sane, kept him even keeled, and its name was Pumpkin. So my parents used to tease me that Jamie was Pumpkin and I was Seabiscuit. And we were best friends. Everyone was like, you guys should be together. My family was like, he's in love with you. And one day he kissed me and the rest is history. We got married, and about 5 seconds later I was pregnant. And then we started on this wild journey of building a family. I left the cooking industry because, working till 2 a.m. and living off coffee and cigarettes is not the way that I wanted to parent. So I left that and I started all in on motherhood. Through this time, I started taking photos. We got a beautiful camera for a wedding present, and I started taking photos just for fun. And we had this season of our lives, which was the most beautiful and one of the hardest seasons of my life, because I feel like I completely lost myself in that season. For 7 solid years, I was either pregnant or breastfeeding. As soon as I weaned one, I was pregnant again. We had 3 babies and 4 pregnancies, and it was a time when I completely lost myself. I felt like a milk cow. I felt just lost. I felt like I had no identity. I didn't sleep. And for me, sleep is so incredibly important. I didn't sleep for years, for literal years. And we still had fun. Like, don't get me wrong. There was not just darkness. It was beautiful, beautiful raising our babies together. So many hard things to trying to navigate job losses and new careers and finances. Neither of us were adults when we got married. We were 24 and had no fucking clue how to run a family or do any of this. And we were just learning. It was very, very hard and very amazing. And I wouldn't have done it with anyone else. And when we lost the baby, that was after we had John, and then we had Natalie, and then we lost a baby. And something broke inside me when that happened, in a way that I can't really fully describe unless you've been through it. I felt like it was my fault. It kind of brought me right back to the moment where I felt like it was my fault that a man had lost control and hurt me. It felt like that. It felt like my body had betrayed us and my body had done this, and that I had lost this baby, and I crumbled. It was terrifying and it was horrible, and I couldn't cope with the feelings of it. And people grieve differently, and it's very hard when you're in a partnership and you're trying to both grieve something that happened very differently to both of you. And also raising other kids. Like, I couldn't just hide out and not talk about it, because I had to keep raising my other kids. So we thought, okay, we'll just try again. Now I'll make the hurt go away, but it didn't. I got pregnant very quickly right after, and every single day of that pregnancy was riddled with anxiety and terror and fear. And I was so wrapped up in the fear that I was gonna lose this baby too, that I just was like, I can't wait until this baby's born. I can't wait until this baby is born. All I could think about is, as soon as this baby is out and in my arms, then I'll know it's okay. And her birth was amazing and terrifying. It was a huge snowstorm in September. We had called the midwives because I was like, I think it's happening. You would think by the third one I would know when I was in labor. And I was. But the first two progressed very normally. They just were, labor started, it progressed, it ended in a baby. And with her, I had so much false labor. It would like fully progress. Well, it felt like it was progressing. It would like amp up, and then stop. And this happened for like a week before she was born. And I was so frustrated. I was so at my wit's end. If you've ever been at the end of a pregnancy, the feelings of just get this baby the fuck out are so strong. So finally the midwives came, they checked me. They're like, no, like, you're not close. You're like at 3 centimeters. Like, sorry, we're going to go home. Call us if anything happens. I was so frustrated. I was so angry. I was cursing. I was crying. I was everything. And I was at my wit's end. And Jamie just sat there rubbing my back, and he's like, you can do it. It's okay. Whether the baby comes now or in a week, it doesn't matter. And it amped up, and then stopped. And I was like, no, I was so angry. But if you've ever been in labor, and you know that there's a point called transition where all of a sudden it feels like everything has stopped. But it hadn't. It was just ready to actually happen. So I thought it was just this amp up and stop like every other night before. But in fact, it was transition, and I was ready to push. So there we were, just the two of us in the middle of a snowstorm. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm ready to push. And he was like, okay, let's do it. And we had our beautiful Felicity, just the two of us on the living room floor. And when I tell you the relief, and I sobbed and sobbed tears of joy, and I held her on my chest, and he called the midwives, and they were like, hey, how you guys doing? And they heard the cry in the background. They're like, oh, okay. Now we had the baby. Okay. All right. And they came and helped us with the cleanup and delivering the placenta. But it was something that I'll never forget. It was something that I will hold dear in my heart forever, is that through my hardest, scariest moment, he just looked me in the eyes and he said, you can do this. And he was there to help, but I had to do it on my own. And that's the thing, is no matter where you have your babies, you do it on your own, even if you have help around you. And I thought, in that moment, I was like, okay, now all the anxiety and the fear will be gone, because now that she's here. But it didn't turn out that way. I didn't have any postpartum depression or anxiety with the first two, and I had crippling postpartum depression and anxiety with the last one. Crippling to the point that I went to my doctor and I said, I need help. I can't have these thoughts. I can't be this dark. I had so much guilt and fear that I had ruined her because I wasn't the vibrant, happy mom that I was with the other two. I went to a therapist and she looked at me, she's like, well, your baby's fine though, so aren't you okay? And for anybody who is going through postpartum depression or anxiety, just know that if a therapist says that to you, run in the other direction. Just do that, because that is not a thing to say to someone who has postpartum depression or anxiety. It's something that takes you over. It doesn't mean you love your baby less, and it does go away. It did go away for me. So when Felicity was about 1, that cloud started to lift. I weaned her. We went through a very stressful move and had a house fall through and ended up living with family instead of in our own home, which for me was devastating. I felt like a failure. We finally got our new home. I had weaned her. I finally felt like myself again. We moved into the new home, and the week we moved into our new home, the lockdowns began. So obviously all of us were there for that. Some of us had different experiences. For those who said that the COVID lockdown situation for them was just a time to sit and watch Netflix and get paid to not work, I do not relate in the slightest. I do not relate to you at all. For me, it was the biggest burning down of my life I have ever had. And I had had struggles before, as you know, through this story. I had had a lot of things go wrong, but I had never had my insides reject me in the way that they did now. I suddenly was trapped at home. I suddenly had no way to reach family and friends. I was drinking more and more. I was homeschooling children, and I was finally had my body back to myself after 7 solid years, and my libido came back, but it didn't feel the same. And I was like, what's going on? I started Googling things like, can you be straight and also gay? Which is an unhinged thing to Google, but if you've been there, you've been there. And I started following queer creators, and I started looking up lesbians on TikTok, and I started looking around my life and going, what the fuck? I didn't sign up for this, even though I absolutely signed up for this. I vowed to this. Yet somehow my insides were saying, nope, 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 this is not it, we cannot do this. And if you've never had your insides yell at you that we cannot fucking do this, then it's hard to explain, but I'll try my best. It's kind of like if you take a drug and you weren't expecting it to feel this way and you wish you could get out of it, but you can't because you just got to ride through the trip. That's what coming out felt like for me. It felt like my entire insides were battling 1000% with my outsides, and my brain was trying to make the two cooperate, and I just couldn't. There was a cage match inside my soul, and I was just standing there going, what the living fuck, everyone? I followed the rules. I married the nice man. I went to church. I had my little, time in my youth where I tried the things, but that's just what that was. And what am I going to do now? You can't just come out in your 30s and you have a beautiful, perfect family, or what looks perfect on the outside. Like, people told us we were relationship goals. We got along splendidly. Like, obviously there were a lot of hard things. And there are things that I'm absolutely not going to share here because they're none of anyone's fucking business. We did not have a perfect marriage, but it was a good one. And I loved him. And all of a sudden my insides were screaming, you can't do this anymore. what the fuck was I supposed to do? So I started looking up stories. I read the book by Glennon Doyle, and I was like, oh, maybe this is it. When I read Untamed, I was like, oh my God, like she did it. Maybe I could do this. And I just kept writing in my journal over and over again, what if it's possible to still have a beautiful family and also be myself? And at that time, I went and I accessed some therapy through the Center for Sexuality, which I highly, highly recommend looking into. And I got paired with a queer therapist, which literally, when I say she saved my life, I absolutely mean it. There were very dark days in this that I was 100% sure that it would be better off for me to be not alive than for my children to have a divorced and queer mother. I was 100% of the opinion that that was 100% true. Like we were talking about before, that at that moment for me, that was the truth. So this therapist helped me go from that feeling of I should just not be on this earth to being able to come out to not only my husband, to not only them, but to my religious family. I stood in front of my parents and I said, I'm gay. And they were like, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, I know, right? They didn't see that twist coming. My husband didn't see that twist coming. He did not sign up for that. There was a lot of hurt. There was a lot of anger, as there would be. And all of it justified, and some of it healthy and some of it not. And that is totally okay. But we started to try and navigate this. At first we were like, oh, maybe we'll try some alternate family ideas, which again, I'm not going to get into, but we thought we would try some things. And finally, after what felt to me like a very long time, we decided, no, the marriage has to end. The marriage has to end and we need to try a new family structure. And that was the most heartbreaking moment of my life. I knew that our family had to change, and I knew that I was actually worthy of having a life and a love that matched who I actually was on the inside. And when I say this and when I share my story, I don't mean to say that I was trapped by my marriage or that I was forced into it or that anyone made me do that. I genuinely wanted to get married. I genuinely am so happy that I had my kids with him. And also, there were large parts of myself that I was denying and hiding, and both of those can be true and both of those are valid. So when we actually did split, it was incredibly heartbreaking. I will never, ever forget the morning that he actually moved out. I remember us standing on the front porch, hugging and both sobbing, and it was the hardest moment of my life, and I'll never forget it. And I will eternally be grateful for the grace that he showed me as we went through this. Of course, we had hard times. Of course, there were fights and there was drama, but the fact that he continues to be there for me and that we can now be this incredibly strong partnership for our kids, despite what has all gone down, I can never, I think, put into words how much that means to me. So our first year divorce was incredibly difficult. And if anybody who's been divorced knows that the first year is the hardest. And I had heard people say that and I didn't fully know it. But when you hear people say that the first year is the hardest, believe them. It is. It was incredibly heartbreaking. And all through this time, I was running and growing a business. Yes, I know, right? So you might think I'm absolutely insane, and maybe I am. But with this new chance I had at life, I realized I have a fresh start. I have something that most people don't get, or they are not brave enough to do, is I have this fresh start. And I'm not going to waste it just scraping by and living a life I don't like. I didn't go through all of this pain of coming out and rocking my family. They're all very supportive, by the way, my immediate family. I didn't go through all of this just to live a mediocre life. It kind of felt to me like when people describe a near-death experience and they're like, no, now I have to really I have to go after my dreams, because I had a new lease on life. I had a new life, a brand new life that I got to choose how to do it. And it's really strange when you grow up one way, when you have a whole marriage one way, when you have a whole household and life one way, and then all of a sudden you get to rewrite the rules. You end up sticking with old things you didn't even know are patterns, because it's just so natural to you. But then all of a sudden, if you're on your own and you start looking at all the areas of your life, you're like, well, do I even like this? Do I enjoy this thing that I've been doing? And one of those things for me was alcohol. And this was not something I was expecting. I always thought, I just like to have a good time. I'm fucking hilarious when I drink. I'm adorable. I'm flirty and I'm funny. And I just look really cute in my pants when I'm drinking. But it turns out that what started off giving me courage ended up being the thing that was controlling me. I couldn't get through social things without it. I couldn't get through days without it. So through this same time, when I say my phoenix rose completely different, I mean it, because I got sober and divorced and grew and relaunched my business all in the same year. Looking back now, I'm like, holy fuck, how did we survive that? But it needed to be a full rebirth for me. Something about my soul contract said it needed to be a full rebirth, a 100% rebirth. Everything had to change all at once. And I mean, I'll give it to myself, it was fucking efficient. We got through a lot of rock bottoms all in one shot so we could come up the other side. But sobriety for me has been a huge thing. And I didn't expect it to be. At first, I just said, oh, I'm going to quit drinking for health and fitness. And then I was like, oh, maybe I need to do this for my mental health. And then I had somebody say, hey, have you ever thought about going to an AA meeting? And I was like, what? No, I'm not an alcoholic. Until I went to an AA meeting and I realized, oh, fuck, I definitely am. I'm the kind of person who can't have just one. And that was hard for me because I thought, it's not me, I'm not the problem. Everybody drinks this much. And then when I actually took charge of my life and started really, truly looking at the ways that I had taken away my personal power and given it to alcohol, and how I had used it as an excuse or as a crutch in so many areas of my life. And it all kind of came together for me there, because it was something that really helped me push down the feelings that I knew were down there. I do wonder, if I had been sober, had I been able to, do the things I did and make the choices I made? And I don't know. I can't go back. All I know is that now I am, and I had this full transformation. Now I'm sober. Now I have so much clarity and so much hope. I even have reconciled so much of the stuff that happened with my religion, and I have access to my own higher power, which I thought, oh, hell no. Hell will freeze over before I ever talk to God again. But then I realized that God wasn't in that church. God's everywhere. God is me. God is you. God is certainly not a man in the sky. And the amount of growth that I've been through all of these huge changes has been phenomenal. I don't even recognize my past self. I sometimes wish that 3 years ago, Stephanie could meet me now. What the fuck would she say? She would be shocked and horrified and amazed. So when I talk about the Phoenix Rising, I don't claim to say that my Phoenix is full-fledged and soaring. I am continually rebirthing myself. I went through some very hard stuff this winter through that first year. Seasonal depression kicked my ass. Business stuff went sideways. Some really hard things with people I worked with. Some things that really broke my heart. And it's all been such a learning experience. But also, I made it through more than a year of, supporting my kids by myself, running an entire household on my own from just the income of my business, which, I think in the online space, people post these huge numbers that they make, like, oh, I'm making $70,000 a month. Like, cool, that's amazing for them, and I'm super proud of them. That's not my reality. But the fact that I went from not even having a full-time job and raising babies for 7 full years to completely supporting me and the kids by myself, being the primary parent. They're with me 5 days a week and with him too. And doing all of that completely on my own from the income of my business, doing shit that I absolutely love. For me, that's unreal growth. That is unfucking real growth. Like, from nothing to that in the circumstances I am in the first year of divorce, to me, I am so fucking proud of myself. I can't believe that I've made these strides and that I've done what I've done, and that it's not just been scraping by and surviving. Like, we've done amazing things. Our family's insanely beautifully close. We had family supper last night. We have family supper twice a week. We go on vacations together. We spend insane amounts of time together. We're all meeting up in about 3 hours. And the fact that I can look back now and say, we did that. There are so many examples of divorces that end in everyone hating each other and bitter fighting and bitterness and hate. And we chose to not do that. We chose to still treat each other with love, even through the hardest parts, even through the points where I was like, fuck, I just want to, so much anger. But we stayed true to our commitment to being there for the kids and not destroying our family just because the marriage had to end. And I stayed true to my commitment to not just surviving, but to living a life I absolutely fucking love and I'm obsessed with, even when it's fucking hard. Even when things end with clients and mentors and things that break my fucking heart. Even when friends leave or family rejects me, staying true to it. I had a conversation with a relative the other day where we were talking about an event that I am choosing I can't go to because of the way that some of the relatives in that group are, and I can't submit my kids to that. And they were saying, oh, I'm so sorry that you had to miss this. And I said, it's the price I pay. It's like the cost of admission for a life that I fucking love. And I mean it. Like, I absolutely mean it, that all of the things I've gone through, all of the ashes I've risen up out of, all the shit I had to burn down, it is so fucking worth the cost of admission. I mean that with all my heart. So I'm going to wrap up my story for now. I'm going to come back and tell you more stories, and I'm going to interview other people and have them tell you their Phoenix Rising story. But I want to leave you with this. If you feel like you are in the ashes right now, if you feel like you are standing there with the match, ready to burn your fucking life down, I feel you. I'm there too. I've been there, and I will do it again and again and again. And I can tell you that living a life that actually feels true and beautiful to you, it is so fucking worth the price. The price is worth it. So I love you all deeply. I can't wait to tell you more stories and hear other stories. Please follow. Please rate the podcast. Leave some reviews. I can't wait to hear from you. And of course, share this shit on social media, man. I love to hear it. It's what makes me thrive and makes me realize that, yeah, I got to keep going, is I want to know, did this story help you? How did you feel about it? Please let me know. Okay, until next time, this is Stephanie Rose, and we all have a Phoenix story. Hey, I'm Stephanie Rose, and I am the host of the West Rose Media podcast, Lessons from the Ashes. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and on Threads and on TikTok and all the places. My handle is at West Rose Media. Check out my website too. There are so many resources for people just like you, people who are climbing out of the ashes, ready to make a new life. I got you, babe. Make sure you follow along. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That way you never miss an episode and I can keep doing the magic. I can't wait to keep going. Let's get into it.